Hello, and welcome to the MKG podcast. I'm your host, Carrie Gard. This podcast helps demand gen marketers grow their company's business through the right means, messaging, media, and measurement. At MKG, we hire experts, and to help me introduce today's guest, I have our search engine optimization expert, John Ballard. John, thanks for joining me.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
So our guest today, who's a friend of mine, does professional learning, and he actually built us a professional learning experience at our annual summit this year. What'd you think of that? Because it's not traditional professional development of sitting in a big room in front of somebody speaking to us. It was immersive.
I thought it was awesome. We all work remotely, so we don't get a ton of time with each other. And so putting us in a situation where it wasn't just to sit down in a room was just very unique and awesome, because it made us kind of try out different things and made us talk to each other and just come up with ideas to solve a problem. So I thought it was a great idea. Just the way you organize it all was fantastic. And it was fun too. So it wasn't just a work experience. It was a fun work experience. So I thought we got a ton out of it. And it was just kind of great to really get to know everybody and kind of develop those relationships.
It was really fun to watch. I had to help Kurt put it together because so I came to Kurt back in August and I said, Kurt, I want to open up our annual summit with a collaborative event. And he normally does these really cool playgrounds where he teaches at each different station. He's teaching something different, and it's on your feet and it's walking through a space. And I said, here's what I want the team to learn about this thing called StoryBrand. And I want them to understand how to bring messaging to life in using that idea of story arc, right? From the hero to the challenge, to the solution, to the outcome. And he was like, well, we could do a playground, but because it has to build on each other, what if we did an escape room? I was like, you have my undivided attention. Let's do this thing. And so, yeah, it was really cool. It felt like you could really see the leaders of the group. You could really see the people who were collaborating really well together, who don't normally work together. It was really, really cool. And it was all movie themed. So how can you not?
Yeah, the movie theme was great because it kind of put everybody in a nice little comfortable position. You could talk and everything, and everybody knows movies and, loves a great movie. So it was great to play around with it.
And you all really participated. There was one thing you all had to do to unlock a clue, which was follow a dance sequence. It was awesome. I got it on video.
Hopefully I'm not on that because I'm a terrible dancer, but I'll try.
You all got into it. That's what was so awesome, is that nobody was shy. So Kurt is awesome, and he talks about professional learning and not professional development. And I use that word and I make him cringe, which is hilarious. But professional learning, and that was one experience that we really got to have. But I mean, everybody should really take time to enhance their skills and to grow, don't you think?
Absolutely. Even if it's not something you're comfortable with doing, it's great to kind of branch out and just try your hand at some different things, because I don't think you ever should be, stifled in your career or stifled in what you're learning. So trying new things and just kind of experiencing different ways of doing work is awesome.
It is. And one thing that Kurt really believes in, and he transitions into in our talk, is this idea of anyone can create. And I think, we sometimes forget that, as marketers, we sometimes hold ourselves to say, well, we're not creative people. And Kurt likes to say that's not true and that everybody is creative. And do you agree with that? Do you think you have a creative edge?
Well, I always kind of wanted to be creative, but never really had that skill. But I have done some things in my career where I've tried to be creative, as far as just laying some content out, content creation, things like that. I got an idea before where I've done some infographics for some clients, but I don't have any kind of like design software or anything. So I just used a PowerPoint presentation, and I kind of stenciled together an infographic and just kind of laid it out that way and just added different pictures to it and kind of made it look like something that I thought could be, actually used for for a client. And it turned out all right. I mean, it wasn't as beautiful as I'd like to have it, but it worked pretty well.
And sometimes you just got to get it done, right? Like if you have this idea or somebody presents you an idea and it's like, oh, that feels really cumbersome and really crazy, and I'm not a graphic designer or copywriter, but sometimes if you just sit down and you play around, it's amazing what you can sort of come up with.
Yeah, I think there is a creative mind behind everybody. It just kind of goes into what you're comfortable with and what you think is something that would be fun to do. It Once you kind of start doing a fun project, who knows where it'll take you? You just have to be open to go in different places and seeing what your creative mind will do.
Giving it a shot.
Yeah, absolutely.
So Kurt Klynen is the founder of Joy of Professional Learning. And he talks today about how he has created Joy Professional Learning, how they got started, and what it really means, and that anybody can learn, and to tap into that wanting to learn, and how to go about doing it, as well as the coming out on the other side of actually going and creating something. So let's listen in on what Kurt has to say. I am in Kerrigard. I'm here with Kurt Klynen from the Joy of Professional Learning. Kurt, thanks for joining me.
Well, thanks for having me.
So excited to be doing this with you. As you know, MKG is all about building a bridge to our clients, customers, and their audiences. And I think you do this beautifully, beautifully. So why don't you tell us a little bit about you and Joy of Professional Learning?
Well, for me, I'm an educator who moved through different roles, and at the moment, I'm what they call learning experience architect. So I design experiences where people get to learn something. So my main focus is on educators, but I'm broadening and widening that up to, I think everyone wants to learn. So designing that, working with organizations, working with companies, but I am still a teacher to the core. So I've always got that teacher hat on. And that's how Joy of Professional Learning came to life too. We saw an opportunity at a certain moment, 2016, with a bunch of teachers at a conference in Berlin, that hey, we could try to change this learning format that's out there. Because for teachers, a lot of times you get a presentation or a workshop, and then we switch that up to all kinds of recipes. Look at it a little bit as cooking. So you will have your appetizers or your soups, and then your entrees, main courses, desserts. So depending on how much time you have to learn, we came up with different formats that would fit, and that's not just a presentation or a workshop. And that grew into Joy of Professional Learning. And now we're building the content, designing the blueprint for learning experience, really thinking about what happens from the first step someone is not even aware of that they want to learn, but how can we trigger that learning to the full experience, and also what happens after that.
Yeah, and it's really about getting people up on their feet, right? So, and traditionally, we're talking about professional development, which is a word I'm sure makes you cringe, but that's what it was called, that. Right? Where you're sitting and somebody is teaching to you up at a whiteboard or chalkboard, essentially, and you're sitting there and you're absorbing. Where you guys are doing something totally different, where it's actually about creating an experience where you're up on your feet and you're moving through a space, and you've essentially gamified it.
Well, that's a little bit of my background. I grew up playing games. I mean, from the times of the Genesis, when it was 8 or 16 bits. I've always been playing games. So that's been coming back into one of the books, which is it's all about transforming board games into learning. And then we designed our own game from that, because that engagement and that interactive part, I think that's very important to create that memory of, oh yeah, learning can be fun. And just as you said, up until now, it's been a lot of sit and get. And if we want to break that mold and make a little dent in that teaching universe, then we have to lead by example.
And so you actually teach teachers come into your space where they experience this playground, essentially, as you call it, where they move about and they learn. But the idea is that they would essentially bring this to their classrooms, right? So
Yes, always. So we want to make that, so the inspirational part is one of it and the active part. The other part is that it's engaging and practical. So I always think that things that we will mimic, you need to be able to use the next day in your classroom, not when you have time to, after a summer break, go through it. No, it needs to be that simple that you can pick it up and implement it immediately. And playgrounds are essential in it. I mean, throughout my career, I've had the opportunity of working in kindergarten, and in Belgium, that's 2.5-year-olds till like 5, 6-year-olds. And a 4-year-old taught me how to do station work and rotate. And every station, there's a new skill to learn or to go deeper into and expand on it. So looking at that format, we just brought that to adults. And that's how playgrounds came to life. Playgrounds that could be around any topic. For educators, it's easier in a way for me now that I always think as that teacher. So when we do a playground in Florida, of course, the theme is going to be an amusement park. So that's how Wonderland theme came out. And then we look at the skills. What's the underlying message? Oh, creativity. So how can I take you through it? And then I look at the whole thing from what does it mean when you go through a theme park? What do you get? Oh, I get a ticket at the entrance, but I also get that email that makes you excited or a little video, the whole package.
Bring them through the whole experience. And I think that translates into, I mean, even for us as marketers, we're always looking to learn. I don't think we get an opportunity to do it enough. But really this translates into any, like you said, any topic. And I see how this would fit perfectly into anything that we're doing too. I mean, our space is always evolving. And so being able to experience, to teach, at our company, we do SEO, but we have to teach our clients sometimes what that even means and how that even comes to life. And so to be able to walk them through a playground and have them experience the different nuances of SEO in a really engaging way, it definitely translates really to anybody.
Yeah, I think it's better than just to send a PDF or do a presentation. I mean, that could give you a bit. And I'm not the numbers kind of guy, so I don't want to put a number on there. But what I do know is that people talk about the stories and the experiences that they had. And if I can tell a story really, really good, and that's what I loved about some of the memorable teachers that I have, it's the stories that they took me on, that journey. And if I can create that journey, that experience of you having a positive feeling about it, then I think you want to come back. And that can be from designing a website to designing a document that gets you through if you're making a little book or a catalog for a client. How can you get them to swipe a page or go beyond the first 5 seconds if it's a video? So always have that storytelling mindset in the back of your head.
And so you mentioned that teachers are basically your core audience and who you're talking to. And so what, we talked a little bit about the sit and get definitely being a challenge with trying to teach teachers. What challenges do teachers face on a regular basis that you're trying to solve?
I think that the biggest thing we'll say is time. We don't have enough time. We can't find time because the role of a teacher has changed, where teaching is, if I'll be generous, 5% of the package, and follow-up and data and testing and all of that has come into it, making sure your kids can get to school. Do they have food when they're in school? Where we want to focus on that teaching bit, that thing that got you excited about the job. And like for me, it's that moment where you can show a kid that I see a talent in you. You might not see it yet, but I'm going to prove to you by the end of the school year that there's more in you than you expected from yourself, and I can push those boundaries for you together on the road. That's what I like about being a teacher. So in every design that I do, anyone who comes to a playground or a fika, which is like a coffee morning discussion, how can I provide you questions that provoke you a little bit to think beyond the things that were already in your head, and how can I open up and show you a pathway
and get you excited again about why you started doing this job to begin with? I think that's
exactly. We can't lose that, because once we lose that, and I don't think that machines or robots can replace teachers in that way, because a lot of it is a social aspect. And I think we're still far away from machines reading our emotions in a way that they could respond in the right way. They can probably tell emotions, but I still think that a physical person needs to be in that role of a teacher.
Well, something else you sort of teach to teachers when you're walking through playgrounds and experiences and having these coffee talks, and even through the content you create on a regular basis, is that personalization, right? And that each teacher you're talking to is different, and then each student that they're teaching has their own nuances too, right? So everything you do is personalized.
I try to personalize as much as possible. Try to think up front who's coming to this event, or who's picking up this piece of content, who's watching the video, who's reading the book, and go through that from a beginner's mindset. Sometimes when you're in the job for a few years, you assume too much and you forget how it was in the beginning. And I always want to go through that beginner's mindset of, okay, good, let's see what's coming. Because I think it also keeps you fresh and hungry. Instead of saying, oh, I've seen that before, or I probably know how this is going to end. That's why we like certain television shows, because they give a little twist and you're like, oh, I didn't see that one coming. So next time these people make something, I'll have another look at that.
Let's talk a little bit about, a big part of what you do is you build content. You definitely build these playgrounds, these elaborate experiences, but you have to get people to those. And so there's a lot of buildup you do in order to sort of promote any playground, right? Can you talk me through all the different mediums you use?
Yeah. For me, that's a little bit like the art of the tease. I've been looking at big companies and how they use graphics and or the right words to make you connect to it. And once you can create that community, then people will come. So I just saw Bohemian Rhapsody, and they talk about album tour. And in a way, it's like that. I create something, and then you're proud of it, but you're also at a moment where I just need to be done with it and get it out and see if it resonates or not. And using different platforms on social media makes it a little bit easier. Previously, I mean, how would people get to your content? Right now, you're producing content with so many people that how can you stand out on it? So building upon that, and then what happened for me is that it just pushes my level of professionalism. So I feel that I keep growing in what I'm making, and it's something different every time, because I like to stay hungry. A few weeks ago, we got our first app out. Right now, we're doing podcasts. I'm doing graphic design, but to remember, I'm actually PE teacher who became an elementary teacher. So I haven't gotten any background in it. I know what I want and I know what I like, and I'm starting to build my own style, which is a very minimalistic thing. Because of the teasing, I also like people to use their imagination and inspire them, and that helps, I think, in that personalization way that you just mentioned, is that everyone can find something in it that connects with them, because they want to feel part of the bigger thing, and they can rally and put their shoulders on it. When I asked for the app for the Joy of Professional Learning to get a professional learning planner, these guys were like, okay, good, we want to be part of it, because I think it's going to have a big impact, and we can see it on the numbers and we can see it on the map where it gets downloaded. And for me, it's not about that kind of data. I don't care how many downloads that we get. I care what happens to it. And by giving them that, and in a way, the app is a tease, because if no one comes to explain you how to design the professional learning with it and how to connect it with the books, then it's an app, and okay, it's nice. It shuffles, gets you some recipes, but you still have to do it. And I learned that that's the hardest part. So that's where we come in. After promoting it, we will get a request to come to a school and help them design that, or a company who says, hey, we normally do only workshops, and within the workshop we have different activities, but we never thought about doing a playground or anything else. In that way, it's album tour.
So what you do is, so you have a playground. You do what you essentially say, this tease, but so you have all of this medium that sort of comes together, which I think is fascinating, in that you're never in really one. You don't have to learn about joy of professional learning in one place. So you have the playgrounds and you have these events that you go to or that you're a part of, but you also have this whole book series that anybody can get through iTunes, and I think it's on Amazon, right?
Yeah. Not all of them are on Amazon, but most of them are. I think the first 8 are on Amazon. All the rest of them, they're 9 at the moment, are on Apple Books, and we're actually, I can give you that one. We're making our 10th book to close that first series, which is all going to be about collaborating.
So each book has a theme, and within each book you have what you call recipes. And if anybody doesn't remember this from their childhood, the joy of cooking is really where that stems from. Yeah. And so in each book around each theme are different recipes, and each recipe is essentially an activity, right? Something that you can do, whether it's physical with physical items, right? Like sticky notes.
Oh yeah, we mix it up. We mix it up just like you would mix it up in the kitchen. It's time, tools, and ingredients. How much time do you have? Like, do your parents call and they say, "Hey, we're going to be there in 25 minutes." If that's happening, I'm not putting a turkey in the oven. I'll make something really quick. So I'll go to that section, and then I see, oh, what's left? So I'll open up the refrigerator and say, well, I've got a cucumber, I've got some tomatoes and some feta cheese. So salad, check. I'll do a salad. I can do that. And that's how we think about this learning too, is that what's coming at me? How much time do I have? When people say, I don't have time to learn, as a teacher, I struggle a little bit with that. If anybody has to promote learning, I think it's a teacher. And I hear a lot of teachers who read immense amounts of books just by listening to books on their way to work. And that's because the mindset of a lot of people still is that a book is a physical thing that I have to pick up, and I'll read a book when I have time on a day off to relax. And I'm not saying that every book has to be a professional book. I think there's a lot you can learn from books that are not in your field if you afterwards could make a connection to it. So finding those different formats, and now luckily with technology, most of them are available whenever we want. Twitter chats, podcasts, collecting links on a Pinterest board, and collaborating with people too. So not only are you doing this, you can move at least twice as fast if you collaborate with your colleague who's in third grade, or a colleague in another school on the other side of the country who's also a social studies teacher. So we want to promote that feeling, and by doing that, you create a community, people who want to come back because they get success experiences and they can replicate it easily.
By creating all these different experiences within different mediums, you're basically making it incredibly accessible.
Yeah.
Right.
All that also, like the accessibility thing is very important. Anyone should be able to take part of it. That's why it's not limited to educators. It can be replicated. And we didn't know this because our target audience in the beginning was educators. They were actually using it in the classroom with their children. So the impact for us became bigger when we started seeing schools using a different format with the kids in the classroom, which we didn't think of at first.
So you have your experience, your in-person experience, you have these books, and these all tie together, right? So anything in the books you then take to the playground. So it all overlaps, right? Because you like to say that as much as you can sit down and read the book, to actually get up and experience it just ingrains it that much more, right?
Yeah. And what happens is, again, looking at the cooking shows, you have a cook who then eventually starts to make their own cookbook and uses their own ingredients and all of that. And that's what happened with this is we have all these and we give suggestions to Google tools, to Apple tools, Microsoft tools. I mean, a text editor is a text editor if you need that. We just want to highlight, is there collaboration possible? It's not focused on one thing. Tying it all together and making some of these things come alive. A lot of it from the games edition, we personalized. That's how we made a by Monopoly inspired Teacheropoly board, which was not an original idea from us. It came from one of the writers who was inspired by it. took a spin on it, and then I want to see these things come alive. So that's how the dice game came to life. And what I've noticed about that is sometimes you pick an object up and it's hard to throw it away if you want to clean up in like spring cleaning or something like that. And that's because you've got an emotional connection to it. And that emotional connection, that's what I'm going for, because that will tie back to most of the times positive emotions, because that's why you can't get rid of it. And that's how we make those connections on those different platforms using the different media and the mix between the digital and the hands-on part.
Yeah, I think that's really, it's really cool too, because you build all your content in Keynote and iBooks, right?
Correct. So I am, like I said, I'm not a trained graphic designer. I know what I like, and I find tools to replicate it easily. And then I started campaigns on Twitter challenging people to do the same thing. What I did learn was one of the hardest things you can ask a person is to say, here's a blank sheet and you can make whatever you want. If there's not a playing field or at least a little bit of rules, that's a hard thing. Then people get stuck. So I like to give that playing field and those rules, because the rule breakers will want to have rules that they can break. And from that comes a bunch of creativity. Keynote being for me one of them, because I can manipulate the shapes. There's so much I can do with it. And the quality is good for social media to get out. I'm not talking about designing a billboard in Keynote. I mean, any designer who listens to this will declare me crazy. But I try to use simple tools and tools that people can afterwards say, oh, it's that easy? I can do that. And I can do that. That's what I'm going for in everything that we design. Yeah, you can do that. You don't need me. You needed me to give you that inspiration, and I'll go on tour to inspire you. And then you can come back, and there's things that are for free, some other things that have material cost. You'll have to pay for that, like the dice or the game. That's why we give a lot away for free too. I don't consider it giving it away for free. I mean, if something gets done with it, the impact that you have for kids, that's the bigger goal. Companies will say, like Zappos, they say, we want to have the best possible customer service. I want to have the best possible learning experience.
That's really cool. The really big takeaway for my audience as marketers, in that we all feel the same way teachers do and just not having enough time, is this idea that, you know, with the time you have and the time that's given, is anybody can create. And with the tools available, it's accessible and easy.
To add a little bit to that is that the fear that I had in the beginning that kept me from creating is that you think it has to be perfect and from the first try. And if you've learned anything about a learning process, is that it will 9 out of 10 never be perfect the first time. If it's perfect the first time, you've probably had some experience before, or you're just that talented. But part of the fun is going through it and messing up, getting dirty, making mistakes, having to go back and redesign the whole thing, or losing your file because the hard drive crashed. And then next time you could recreate that whole document in like 10 minutes instead of the 3 hours you spent before, because you have it in your fingers. So I think that fear of perfection is stiffening for some people. And if I could give them one advice, is just get it out, ask feedback as quick as possible. And I learned this from a dancer who said, if I'm doing a dance move and I'm doing it wrong, and if you can't correct me, I will keep doing it wrong. And once I do it 30 times over, then it's muscle memory. Now my body thinks that's the way you do it. And that's when it's going to be really hard to unteach that or unlearn that. So ask feedback quickly, and you will see what happens to your creativity.
Thank you so much, Kurt. This was a pleasure, and I look forward to connecting with you further.
All right. Great. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye. So that was Kurt Klynen on Joy of Professional Learning. And something Kurt mentioned that really struck home for me, that I think all of our clients can relate to. I know he talked a lot about teachers and helping teachers, but I think what's really nice about this is it's something we can all take something away from. And one thing he mentioned was this idea of, after watching uh oh gosh, what was that movie with about Queen? Uh
Oh,
well, he mentioned it in the podcast. Yeah, he mentioned it in the podcast. It's a fantastic movie about Queen and lead singer. And one of the things that Queen did in the movie was they created an album and all of the press to go with it. And then they took it on tour and they actually went stadium to stadium and actually played their music. And he talks about doing that from his own perspective of where he creates an event like a playground, like our escape room. And then he creates a lot of PR information to go around that to get people excited, to tease. He mentioned teasing. He really likes that idea of like, what is it that Kurt's doing? And why is he doing it? And where's he taking it? And it really creates a lot of buzz around this thing that he's creating that people don't even really know what he's doing yet, but he creates really awesome stuff. And and people know him to do that. So he creates buzz around it. And then he goes and presents it at an event. And multiple events. He's taking our escape room actually and taking it on tour and doing it in multiple places. And so I thought that was really cool because it's this idea of taking a single piece of, it's like our clients do, right? They have a product and they have to create all of the PR around the product. And then they got to essentially go take it on tour where they show up at events, where they do webinars, where they, there's definitely virtual things they do to sort of take their new product on tour. But it's this idea of creating multiple pieces of content out of a single thing. And we help our clients do that to a certain extent, don't we, John?
Yeah, absolutely. We give them a couple of different ideas about content that could be created, but we also look at it from a kind of a logical standpoint and seeing what kind of trends are developing and what kind of people or what interests people have about their current products, about any kind of new products. And we provided a couple different recommendations as far as content pieces that are pretty far-reaching, that have some basis in the online world and the offline world. So I kind of look at it gearing a website towards obviously the online world, but there's an offline component too that could be really beneficial if you kind of tie those back and forth together. So the more information and more unique content ideas we can give to a client, it just really benefits their site and their business as a whole. So we've always tried to kind of focus on really strong content ideas and building to that. So it's a good mix of drip content and just making sure that we get the right mix for the client.
And you actually, in our prep for this, you mentioned we actually just did this for one of our clients, Maxim Integrated, where we, what did we do? It was on one of their websites. We recommended some creative assets.
Yeah, so they've got, they're a semiconductor manufacturer. So they have a ton of resources currently on site, like diagrams, images, just all this good stuff, but they're not really taking advantage of it across all their pages. So we just looked at their content and said, you've got a great opportunity to link over here. This is really relevant to this page. So add this here, add this video here, make sure these videos and content is all shareable, just to really, kind of beef their pages up a lot. And it's, any kind of work like that is really valuable to them because it just gets additional content that they already have. They're not having to create any new content from scratch. It's already there. It's just being repurposed.
And in repurposing, they could even take that off their website, right? And do some social sharing with those diagrams, with those videos. And even in, if they have a complex diagram, they could even drop in a simple white paper about that. And they don't need, this is the beauty of it, right? They don't need a graphic designer. They don't need a copywriter. They have all of the assets at their fingertips. It's just repurposing it in a creative way.
Yeah, absolutely. And they can just take everything that's already there, just either reuse it or they can just repurpose it. And the social sharing is great for them because there's so many people looking for videos, and YouTube could be a huge impact item for them. They just need to really kind of push that content out there and get it onto more YouTube channels and get in people's channels.
So in putting Kurt Kleinen's Anyone Can Create concept to the test, I have actually created a Loom video for all you listeners where I show you how to create a Facebook ad using Keynote. If you are on a Windows machine, this is probably something you can do in PowerPoint, maybe not, but Keynote is a really powerful tool if you know how to just navigate it a little bit. And so I show you how to do that. And the nice thing about Facebook is you can't have a lot of copy in your images. So you're basically just taking what's already on your website and doing exactly what John's talking about of repurposing it. So look below for a link to this Loom video. If you're already on our blog post page, it'll be in there as well, embedded. So check it out and go create something because it's fun. I found it fun. I found it fun.
I think it's fun.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, John. And if you are looking to reach out to Kurt Klynen, you can check out joyofprofessionallearning.com. He's also across Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter of Joy of PL, or you can simply look for Kurt Klynen, Klynen, and talk to him about how you'd like to learn more about how to create, or if you want him to come out and give your team a little professional learning engagement. It was phenomenal. The escape room was awesome. You should definitely reach out to him.